Hello guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Chika, and in this tutorial I'm going to be sharing you how to make a waistcoat. For this waistcoat I'm just going to be using 1 yard of plain black fabric. It's length 60 and it's just 1 yard, so I equally got 1 yard of black lining to match it. Okay, so you can use whatever kind of material you find interesting for this style, and just 1 yard will be enough. Depending on your size, you can actually go a little bit more, like 1.5 yard, but that would just be it. All right, so if this seems like something you would love to learn how to make, definitely keep watching to the end of this video. Also, do well to leave a like if you find this video very helpful. Subscribe to this channel so you can get notified whenever I post a new video. Also, tell me what you think about this waistcoat and this tutorial in the comment section. You can follow me directly on Instagram by clicking the link in my bio. Tell me about special tutorials you would love me to make, and let's get right into it. So for this waistcoat, you'll basically be needing your shoulder, your measurement, your bust measurement, your waist measurement. And waist measurement is also going to be the length of this waistcoat. Okay, you'll be needing your round armhole measurement and your nipple to nipple measurements for the purpose of your darts. So to start with, I'm just going to go ahead and draw a straight line at this point. This is going to be the starting line and it's our shoulder line. Okay, I'll be using my pencil first of all to mark out the measurements, and I'll be using my marker later to highlight it all around. Okay, so on this line, which is my shoulder line, I'm going to take my shoulder measurement and I'm going to divide it by 2. So you divide your shoulder measurement by 2 and I'm going to mark it on this line. My shoulder measurement is 16 and 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. So I'm marking 8 inches on this line. Alright, so now I also want to go ahead and mark out my neck measurement. This one we're cutting first is the back piece. I'm going to use the back to cut the front. Okay, so for the back neckline, I'm using 3 inches by width and I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and use this curved part of the ruler to connect it to form a round neckline for the back. So now I've gone ahead to divide my shoulder measurement by 2. I left the mark at 8 inches. What I want to do is that at that point I'm going to come down by 1 inch, just like this. I'm just going to place your tape this way. You need to come down by 1 inch. Then you want to connect from this point to your neckline just to create your shoulder slope. So after creating my shoulder slope, you want to go ahead and mark my armhole line right now. So for your armhole line, you can divide your round armhole measurement by 2, or you can divide your bust measurement by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So for me, I'm going to be using 8 for this. Okay, 8 is going to be my round armhole line. I'm leaving a mark at 8 inches. I want to go ahead and also mark out my bust point, which is my shoulder to where my nipple is. That is where I'll be marking my bust circumference. So I'm leaving a mark at 11 inches. And then for the length of this waistcoat, I'm going to be using 18 inches. Okay, then I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead and connect these lines. I'll draw them straight so they are more visible. Okay, so now this is our armhole line, this is our bust line, and this is our length of waistcoat. The next thing I want to do will be to work on my shoulder. Alright, so for your waistcoat, your shoulder is not supposed to be this big. Your shoulder is not supposed to be this big. So we have to reduce this. So what we're going to do is that at this point, from this point, we're going to come in by 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to come in by 2 inches. I'm just going to leave a mark at 2 inches here. Okay, so I'm going to measure now from this point here downward to see what I have. And I have about 6 inches. So I'm just going to mark the same 6 inches on this armhole line. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and connect downward. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to take my bust circumference. So my bust circumference is 37. So because this is a waistcoat, I want this waistcoat to have ease. It's not supposed to be too clinged to your body. Okay, so I'm going to be adding 3 inches to 37, which is my initial bust measurement 37. I'm adding 3 inches and that gives me 40. So now I'm going to be dividing the new bust measurement, which is 40 inches. I'm going to be dividing 40 inches by 4 and that gives me 10. So I hope you understand. Basically, you're going to take your bust measurement and you're going to add ease to it. The ease I added is 3 inches, and then when I have what I have, I'm just going to divide it by 4. Okay, so 37 plus 3 inches, that's 40. Then 40 divided by 4 gives me 10. So I'll go ahead and mark 10 inches on my armhole line. Okay, I'll also go ahead and mark 10 inches on my bust line, just so I can see like this. Okay, the next thing you want to do is to do the same process for your waist. Okay, so for my waist measurement, I have it at 31 inches. But again, because of the ease, I'm also going to add 3 inches allowance, and that gives me 34. So I'm going to divide 34 inches by 4, and I have 8.5. I'll go ahead and mark 8.5 on this line. Okay. Now what I want to do is to add my sewing allowance. So on my armhole line, I'm going to add half of an inch. On my bust line, I'm going to add half of an inch. On my waistline, I'm going to add half of an inch. So I've marked out these lines now. I want to go ahead and connect them with a straight line upward like this. So I'm then going to use the curved part of my ruler like this, and I'm going to connect it this way. Okay, so after I've done this now, the next thing I want to do will be to take my dart. So for my dart, my nipple to nipple measurement is 8. I'll be dividing that by 2, and that gives me 4. So I'm going to be marking 4 inches on this waistline. Okay, so from this bust line now, I'm going to come down by 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to come down by 2 inches here, and then I'll come out again by 4 inches. All right. Then I'm going to connect this 4 inches to this 4 inches with a straight line. I'm trying to create my dart here. Okay, so next thing I want to do now will be to go out on half an inch on both sides of this waistline. Okay, so here I'm going to go out by half of an inch, and here I'm going to go out by half of an inch. So together what I have will be 1 inch. So I'm going to connect my dart now like this. Okay, so once I have this now, I'm just going to measure the allowance I have here to replace my dart. Okay, so what I have is 1 inch. I'll replace my dart on my waistline to avoid any shortage. Okay, so once I've replaced that, I'll just go ahead and connect this upward again. So now I'm going to use my marker to connect these lines so they are bolder for you guys to see. Okay. Alright guys, so for my front piece, there's going to be a button overlap. For that button overlap, I'm going to be taking 2 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark 2 inches from the top of my pattern paper down. I'll go ahead and connect these lines. Okay, so now this is for my button allowance. Now I'm going to take my back piece and I'm going to place it right on top of my front piece. I'll place it from this allowance here. Okay, I'll go ahead and pin this down so it does not move. So once I've done this, the next thing I want to do will be to trace out the measurements that I have here. I'll start from my shoulder. Okay. So once I've traced out my shoulder now, I want to go ahead and mark my neck measurement for my front piece. So for the front piece is a V neckline. Okay, so I'm just going to move my pattern paper aside like this, and I'm going to be choosing my neck depth. And for my neck depth, I'm just deciding to use 7 inches so it doesn't go very deep. I don't want to reveal any cleavage, so I'm just going to use my ruler now to connect like this to 7 inches. Okay, so this is what I have. This is for my front neckline. Okay, so after I've done that, now next I want to do will be to mark out my armhole for my front piece. So the armhole for the front piece is not supposed to be as wide as the armhole for the back piece. Okay, so I'm going to move this one aside again. Okay, after I've traced out this measurement, I'm just going to move this aside. So from here now, I know that this is my armhole line. Okay, I'll connect this like this, and then from this point I'm going to connect with a straight line downward like this. What I want to do now would be to divide what I have from here to here by 2. Okay, from here to here what I have is about 8.5, so I'm just going to leave a mark at 4¼ inches. So from this 4¼ inches now, I'm going to come in by half of an inch like this, and from this point now I am going to create my armhole curve. Like I said, the front one is supposed to be smaller than the back one, so this is why this one is coming inside like this. Sorry. Okay, and then it's going outward like this, just like this. All right, so now I want to go ahead and create the shape you usually see here on that waistcoat. For that, I'm just going to come down by about 6.5 inches. Okay, you can actually go ahead and measure this on the body of your client or on yourself, depending on who you're sewing for, and you want to measure where you want that to stop. Okay, so for this point I'm just going to measure out 4 inches here. Okay, I'm going to leave a mark at 4 inches just like I have for my dart. Okay, so I'm going to connect this upward like this. What I want to do now will be to connect like this. Okay, and then I want to also connect inward like this. All right, so from this point now I'm going to draw a straight line upward, and I'll stop somewhere around here. Okay, around that midpoint. So from here now, what I want to do now will be to come out by ½ inch on this point, also come out by ½ inch on this point. Then I'm going to connect upward like this. I'll connect upward like this. After doing this now, I want to come off by 2 inches on this point. That's here. Okay, and I want to connect this point to this point like this, and this point to this point like this. So this is basically for the dart of the front piece. So I'll go ahead and cut this out. So here we're going to be having our buttons. Okay, we're going to be having our buttons here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So now basically this is what I have for my front piece, and this is what I am having for my back piece. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out on my material and my lining pieces. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead to use my pattern paper to cut out both lining and material pieces for the front and the back piece. When I was cutting it out, if you notice, I left ½ inch of allowance at the shoulder, at the neckline, and at the armhole for both the back piece and the front piece, but then I didn't add this allowance to the down or to the side, so it's just at this upper part. Okay, so once I've done this now, I want to go ahead and open my back piece like this and the lining piece of my back piece. So first of all, I want to go ahead and take my dart. So I transferred my dart to my material by leaving a notch here so that I will be able to identify where my dart is supposed to be. So now what I want to go ahead to do now is to take that dart on my lining piece and on my material piece for the back piece. As I'm doing that, I'll also go ahead to do it to my front piece. I'm just going to transfer the dart to my front piece, and then I'll take it just along the middle line here for both the material pieces and the lining pieces. Alright guys, so after going ahead to take my dart, this is what I have. I did the same thing on the lining piece, so I did it to both the front and back. What I'm going to do now is that I'll place my lining piece on top of my main bodice piece, so just around the neckline and the armhole. That's where I'm going to be sewing. I'll sew the neckline, I'll sew the armhole, and then I'll also sew the base. I'll be doing this by just 1/2 inch. I will not be closing up the shoulder or the sides, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that to the back piece. I also went ahead to take my dart on my front piece. So this is what I have. This is what I have for the two front pieces. This is what I have, okay? So I'll go ahead also and place my lining right on top of it, just like this. And then I'll be sewing along this armhole line. I'll sew along the neckline, and then I'll sew along the base, just here. Okay, I'll sew here, I'll sew here, I'll sew along the base, and then I'll also close up the side for our button. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that to both sides and to the back piece. Alright guys, so after going ahead to sew the lining piece to the main fabric piece, this is what you should be having. The sides of the back piece should be open, the two sides, as well as the shoulder, while every other side should be closed. And then for the front piece, the side should also be open and the shoulder should be open, while every other side closed. So now you want to go ahead and turn this inside out. Alright guys, so after going ahead to turn all these pieces inside out, I want to go ahead and join the shoulder. So for the shoulder, this part, it's going to be like this, okay? It's going to be like this, but we can't join it just here at the shoulder. So what you want to do now is to go ahead and put your hand into one of these holes, okay? And then the one that's meant to be there, you're going to take it in like this, and you're just going to turn this to the back. So what you want to do now will be to arrange this piece like this. You're going to be arranging this piece like this so it stays very flat, okay? So once you have this flat, you want to go ahead and pin this down. And then you're going to sew on 1/2 inch to close that up. So I'm also going to do the same thing to the other side. I'll go ahead and take in my shoulder part. This is my shoulder, okay? And this part is meant to be attached to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my hand inside of it. I'm going to grab this piece that's supposed to be inside. I'll hold it in place, and then I'll move this to the back like this. Alright, so with that, now I have this one inside of the other. What I want to do now is to arrange it to be flat, and then I'll go ahead and pin down on it again. So I'll go ahead and sew these two pieces, the two shoulder lines, on 1/2 inch. Alright guys, after going ahead to sew on the shoulder line of both sides, you just want to open it up inside out, and this is what it should be looking like, okay? Your shoulder should be joined like this. So I'm going ahead to do that to both sides. This is what I have. Okay, this is what I have. So now at this point, you just want to go ahead and give all of this a good press before we go ahead to join the sides together. Alright guys, so after going ahead to iron all these pieces, this is what we have. I used my hemming gun along the neckline. I use it along this button allowance and just along the hem, also along this point, so that it could sit very well. So one thing you want to do now is to join the sides. So you can join the sides in two ways. Okay, so maybe you want to easily adjust your clothes anytime, or you just want to finish this up quickly. You can go ahead and close up the sides like this and weave it. But if you want this to look seamless, this is what you're going to do. Okay, so since this side is going to this side, all right, what you want to do now is through this other part, you want to stick your hand into it, and then you're going to hold it like this, and you're going to turn it to the wrong side. Okay, so by this now you should have this first one, that's the front piece, inside of the back piece like this. So what you want to do now is to separate it, hold the lining to the lining and the material to the material. So this is what you should be having. Okay, this is what you should be having. You want to go ahead now and pin it down, lining to lining and material to material. I'm going to go ahead and pin this all around. Okay, so once I've pinned this, this is what I have. So now I'm just going to place it on my machine, and I'll go ahead and sew all around like this, just placing it like this. You're going to be sewing all around here by 1/2 inch or whatever amount of allowance that you used. Okay, so once I've gone ahead to sew it all around, you just want to turn it to the right side. Okay, so once you turn it to the right side, this is what you should be having. Okay, we're going to be having a seamless finish just like this. This is what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. So now the next thing I want to do would be to join the other side. But for the other side, you won't be able to close it up completely like you did to this one because you've already closed one side. Okay, so what you want to do is you're going to also hold it the same way. You're going to hold it the same way, material to material and lining to lining. You want to go ahead and pin that down. So we're going to start by pinning the material pieces first before the lining pieces, because we're going to be able to sew this up completely. But the most that we can sew, we want it to be the material piece, so that the seam that we'll be making will be on the inner piece, which is the lining, and it won't show. Okay, so you just go ahead and pin the material piece first. So now that I've gone ahead to pin this part, this is the most that I can sew. Okay, this is the most that I can sew. So I'll go ahead and sew around those points that I've pinned down. So guys, once you sew all around to the part where you can sew and stop, you should be having just like a little hole. Okay, you should be having just a little hole. So now what I want to go ahead to do, you can either use your needle and try to sew it inside to be looking seamless, or you can just hold this piece together like this and top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and hold mine together like this and top stitch on it. Alright guys, so after going ahead to close up the sides with a top stitch, the next thing I went ahead to do was to put my buttons, and I spaced my buttons out by 2 inches. So I'll equally make buttonholes, and I'll space those buttonholes out by the same 2 inches. Okay, so this is basically what I have for my waistcoat. I do hope you found this tutorial very helpful. If you did, leave a like for me. Also subscribe to this channel so you can get notified whenever I upload a new video. Do also tell me what you think about this waistcoat in the comment section, and if you be trying this out, send me pictures to my Instagram. My link is in my bio, and I'll be sure to see you in my next tutorial. Bye guys.